Book 2, Chapter 7 of Michael Strogoff, Courier of the Tsar. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Michael Strogoff, by Jules Verne. Book 2, Chapter 7. The Passage of the Yenisei. At nightfall, on the 25th of August, the kibitka came in sight of Krasnoiarsk. The journey from Tomsk had taken 8 days. If it had not been accomplished as rapidly as it might, it was because Nicholas had slept little. Consequently, it was impossible to increase his horse's pace, though in other hands the journey would not have taken 60 hours. Happily, there was no longer any fear of Tartars. Not a scout had appeared on the road over which the kibitka had just traveled. This was strange enough, and evidently some serious cause had prevented the Emir's troops from marching without delay upon Irkutsk. Something had occurred. A new Russian corps, hastily raised in the government of Yeniseisk, had marched to Tomsk to endeavor to retake the town, but, being too weak to withstand the Emir's troops, now concentrated there, they had been forced to effect a retreat. Feofar Khan, including his own soldiers and those of the Khanats of Khokhand and Kunduz, had now under his command 250,000 men, to which the Russian government could not as yet oppose a sufficient force. The invasion could not, therefore, be immediately stopped, and the whole Tartar army might at once march upon Irkutsk. The battle of Tomsk was on the 22nd of August, though this Michael did not know, but it explained why the vanguard of the Emir's army had not appeared at Krasnoiarsk by the 25th. However, though Michael Strogoff could not know the events which had occurred since his departure, he at least knew that he was several days in advance of the Tartars, and that he need not despair of reaching before them the town of Irkutsk, still 600 miles distant. Besides, at Krasnoiarsk, of which the population is about 12,000 souls, he depended upon obtaining some means of transport. Since Nicholas Pigassof was to stop in that town, it would be necessary to replace him by a guide, and to change the kibitka for another more rapid vehicle. Michael, after having addressed himself to the governor of the town, and established his identity and quality as courier of the Czar, which would be easy, doubted not that he would be enabled to get to Irkutsk in the shortest possible time. He would thank the good Nicholas Pigassof, and set out immediately with Nadia, for he did not wish to leave her until he had placed her in her father's arms. Though Nicholas had resolved to stop at Krasnoiarsk, it was only, as he said, on condition of finding employment there. In fact, this model clerk, after having stayed to the last minute at his post in Kolyvan, was endeavoring to place himself again at the disposal of the government. "Why should I receive a salary which I have not earned?" he would say. In the event of his services not being required at Krasnoiarsk, which it was expected would be still in telegraphic communication with Irkutsk, he proposed to go to Udinsk, or even to the capital of Siberia itself. In the latter case, he would continue to travel with the brother and sister, and where would they find a surer guide, or a more devoted friend? The kibitka was now only half a verst from Krasnoiarsk. The numerous wooden crosses which are erected at the approaches to the town could be seen to the right and left of the road. It was 7 in the evening. The outline of the churches and of the houses built on the high bank of the Yenisei were clearly defined against the evening sky, and the waters of the river reflected them in the twilight. "Where are we, sister?" asked Michael. "Half a verst from the first houses," replied Nadia. "Can the town be asleep?" observed Michael. "Not a sound strikes my ear." "And I cannot see the slightest light, nor even smoke mounting into the air," added Nadia. "What a queer town!" said Nicholas. "They make no noise in it, and go to bed uncommonly early." A presentiment of impending misfortune passed across Michael's heart. He had not said to Nadia that he had placed all his hopes on Krasnoiarsk, where he expected to find the means of safely finishing his journey. He much feared that his anticipations would again be disappointed. But Nadia had guessed his thoughts, although she could not understand why her companion should be so anxious to reach Irkutsk, now that the imperial letter was gone. She one day said something of the sort to him. "I have sworn to go to Irkutsk," he replied. But to accomplish his mission it was necessary that at Krasnoiarsk he should find some more rapid mode of locomotion. "Well, friend," said he to Nicholas, "why are we not going on?" "Because I am afraid of waking up the inhabitants of the town with the noise of my carriage," and with a light fleck of the whip Nicholas put his horse in motion. 10 minutes after they entered the High Street. Krasnoiarsk was deserted. There was no longer an Athenian in this Northern Athens, as Madame de Bourboulon has called it. Not one of their dashing equipages swept through the wide clean streets. Not a pedestrian enlivened the footpaths raised at the bases of the magnificent wooden houses, of monumental aspect. Not a Siberian belle, dressed in the last French fashion, promenaded the beautiful park, cleared in a forest of birch trees, which stretches away to the banks of the Yenisei. The great bell of the cathedral was dumb. The chimes of the churches were silent. Here was complete desolation. There was no longer a living being in this town, lately so lively. The last telegram sent from the Czar's cabinet, before the rupture of the wire, had ordered the governor, the garrison, the inhabitants, whoever they might be, to leave Krasnoiarsk, to carry with them any articles of value, of which might be of use to the Tartars, and to take refuge at Irkutsk. The same injunction was given to all the villages of the province. It was the intention of the Muscovite government to lay the country desert before the invaders. No one thought for an instant of disputing these orders. They were executed, and this was the reason why not a single human being remained in Krasnoiarsk. Michael Strogoff, Nadia, and Nicholas passed silently through the streets of the town. They felt half stupefied. They themselves made the only sound to be heard in this dead city. Michael allowed nothing of what he felt to appear, but he inwardly raged against the bad luck which pursued him, his hopes being again disappointed. "Alack, alack!" cried Nicholas, "I shall never get any employment in this desert." "Friend," said Nadia, "you must go on with us." "I must indeed," replied Nicholas. "The wire is no doubt still working between Udinsk and Irkutsk, and there. Shall we start, little father?" "Let us wait till tomorrow," answered Michael. "You are right," said Nicholas. "We have the Yenisei to cross, and need light to see our way there." "To see!" murmured Nadia, thinking of her blind companion. Nicholas heard her, and turning to Michael, "Forgive me, little father," said he. "Alas! night and day, it is true, are all the same to you." "Do not reproach yourself, friend," replied Michael, pressing his hand over his eyes. "With you for a guide I can still act. Take a few hours' repose. Nadia must rest too. Tomorrow we will recommence our journey." Michael and his friends had not to search long for a place of rest. The first house, the door of which they pushed open, was empty, as well as all the others. Nothing could be found within but a few heaps of leaves. For want of better fodder the horse had to content himself with this scanty nourishment. The provisions of the kibitka were not yet exhausted, so each had a share. Then, after having knelt before a small picture of the Panaghia hung on the wall, and still lighted up by a flickering lamp, Nicholas and the young girl slept, whilst Michael, over whom sleep had no influence, watched. Before daybreak the next morning, the 26th of August, the horse was drawing the kibitka through the forests of birch trees towards the banks of the Yenisei. Michael was in much anxiety. How was he to cross the river if, as was probable, all boats had been destroyed to retard the Tartars' march? He knew the Yenisei; its width was considerable, its currents strong. Ordinarily by means of boats specially built for the conveyance of travelers, carriages, and horses, the passage of the Yenisei takes about 3 hours, and then it is with extreme difficulty that the boats reach the opposite bank. Now, in the absence of any ferry, how was the kibitka to get from one bank to the other? Day was breaking when the kibitka reached the left bank, where one of the wide alleys of the park ended. They were about 100 feet above the Yenisei, and could therefore survey the whole of its wide course. "Do you see a boat?" asked Michael, casting his eyes eagerly about from one side to the other, mechanically no doubt, as if he could really see. "It is scarcely light yet, brother," replied Nadia. "The fog is still thick, and we cannot see the water." "But I hear it roaring," said Michael. Indeed from the fog issued a dull roaring sound. The waters being high rushed down with tumultuous violence. All three